Hey everyone, I'm going to kick off this week and talking about this idea of push and pull in relationships. So the idea is that when we form a close bond with someone, and we typically do this in our intimate relationships, which so think of your partner, think of brother or sister. What happens is that as we form that bond, there is both love to that. There's also risk to that. We've got something to lose. And in that happening, that can create two types of behaviors. It can create a push behavior where you're like, you're like jumping on them all the time going, I need more of your time. And you're pushing more contact and pushing more time with them. And then you can have the pull, which is where you sit back and give them space and wait for them to come to you. And I've noticed this dynamic for me in myself, and especially in establishing new relationships. And in thinking and processing that, I am aware that what it comes back to is always self. So relationships are a mirror to the self always. And so if you're able to sort of process that, the way they are a mirror is because if you have a deep acceptance of yourself and deep love of yourself, then push-pull doesn't become a reality, because you have no need for it to be any different to what it is, because everything that a relationship can give to you, you've already given to yourself. And so like we've been sort of, one of the themes that we've been talking about since this podcast started is the inner relationship to create the external reality that you want, or the inner relationship within you to create the external reality you want, but also the relationship you want. My lesson has been that I have taken a look at what creates some of those push and pull dynamics and seen parts of me that I haven't accepted. And in giving love to those, I can reset that push and pull dynamic within myself so that I can create different attachments with people around me. When I say different, healthier. So do you connect with any of that?
Yeah, just you use the word create, and I think for me the word would be attract. Yeah, by concentrating on yourself and loving yourself, and we've talked about love for ourselves quite a bit over these number of podcasts that we've done so far. That generates that vibration that attracts
healthy
what you would like, and then that negates the need for a push and pull, or negates the you doing that, because you're more comfortable with yourself, which allows the space for the attraction to flow to you in the healthy way that you want.
I think there's always been, I agree, I think there's always been these rules, as the man is keep them keen, like don't reply to the text. There's always rules like,
you see that
give them a week, give it a week,
like
right. Make them be really, and that's the pull thing, right? You want to really see how they feel and all those kind of things. I don't agree. I don't like that.
No,
it doesn't feel right to me.
I spend a bit of time on TikTok, over the last couple of years. And some of the stuff is just so toxic. It's just like, oh my God, why are we still doing that? Why do people even talk about that?
No.
It's not.
But at the same time, if you're smothering someone and you're doing that for a needy reason, that is sending a message to them that you're not comfortable in your own skin.
Absolutely,
which is not particularly attractive.
Yeah, well, exactly,
right?
Exactly. So it's definitely not of any help if you're trying to get to a new relationship or another relationship, or a healthier relationship, even with the
same person.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So I think that's, and then if you look at the So that's the pull dynamic, which is that you're on that side. If you then look at the push dynamic, it again is created from an anxiety of losing something that you feel like you've got. So in that anxiety, you continually want reinforcement and a signal that what you think you have in terms of emotional closeness is actually there from the other person's perspective. So you keep asking for these, for whatever it is. It could be,
you need that validation.
It could be the holding hands, or always cuddling them, or always wanting to go out, or and it was very. I thought it was. I read it on a podcast by Amy Kerr, who did a really good video on the stages of relationships and how they develop. And she talked about this push-pull dynamic, and I think it's a really good thing to be aware of.
Absolutely, yeah, and it's all very well to say you need to love yourself, but that's a process, and that's a lot of effort to get to some level of that, so that you don't need the push and pull. So what you need to be doing is being self-aware, or aware enough around what you're actually doing and what's turning up for you. And like you say, that reflection, that mirror that keeps coming up is not the other person. It's something about you.
Yeah.
And even just being aware about that, and then taking a step back from that, and then going back to trying to work out love for yourself in whatever the area that's turning up in the wrong way.
Yeah.
Is a really good thing.
What am I not?
A good step. Yeah.
What am I not giving to myself that I need from this other person?
Yeah.
That's the question. I think is the fundamental question to ask: is what am I not giving to myself?
That's right.
I need from this other person. And you touched upon a really good point there, which is, and that I want to reinforce, which is when we talk about self-love, we are not talking about the fact that you give yourself permission to be the worst version of yourself, right? It doesn't mean that you are unconditionally accepting everything you say and do. Sometimes you have an impact on other people. So it's deeper than that. It doesn't mean that you can still have moments where you're like, I would have liked to have done that better. I would have liked to have said that better. I would have liked to have shown up better. But it means underneath all that, you have a compassion for yourself and an acceptance of those parts of yourself all those parts of yourself. I did a video this week on my other channel for my coaching where I talked about this self-acceptance. And I gave the example of the fact that I've always been a person who's been really emotional. And when they meet me, wouldn't say I'm an emotional person, but I have a really big heart, and that's how I've always been. It's almost like my heart wants to envelop everyone in the world, right? It's just that's the type of guy I'm in. I want to cuddle dogs and I want to do all that sort of stuff. And because I've grown up in a world where men aren't traditionally like that, I pushed that away for a long time and felt like I had to be someone else. And that's been a really important part of me embracing that and allowing that to be part of my relationships with other people. But I have to do that in a balanced, neutral way, not in a push-pull way, right? I've got to let that out in a way that's also okay for the other person, because I can't allow my heart to jump, jump all over them and smother them, right? Yeah. I have to allow and be patient for that to emerge over a period of time. So hopefully that gives you an example, is you can accept that part of yourself, but you also have to be and be aware of it and love it. But you also have to be aware of the other person.
Yeah. We talked about intentions and consequences in the previous episode. The other thing about love as well is there's so many pieces to that. Yeah. I was on a masterclass workshop a few weeks ago around love and forgiveness, and my buddy through the workshop in the breakout rooms, we talked about, and one of the analogies that she used, she said it's like a color So you go from light all the way through to the dark, and she used red in this case. So you go from the really light shades all the way through. So you've got love at the brightest part,
Yeah, the lightest part,
the darkest part, the thickest.
Oh, I see.
The part of the color. I'm not really a color expert, so I'm not sure why I'm going to demonstrate. But anyway, and then there's other parts in that path of getting to the love of. Just let me finish this.
Yeah,
I'll
yeah.
just
Where you got
no, that's okay. Yeah, that's right. The color thing doesn't really matter. We're on the one color, so but there's compassion, which you've already touched on. There's self-confidence, there's compassion, and there's care. So care is a mood that really the more you're in that mood, the more that you will start looking at love for yourself and understanding and caring and taking the time to work through all these pieces that may be coming up for you. And that's where you get to the love. So that's the stream of color, I guess, the ribbon, if you want, of the shades of a particular color. Yeah.
I love that. So if I think if you think of all the parts of you as a color spectrum, it could be red or yellow or blue, and are there parts of you that you haven't brought the light to, that you haven't accepted, and to what extent are those? Can you do that so that the things you want in your life can
come to you? Yeah, which goes away from what you started with the push and pull. Absolutely, yeah.
All right, I think that's good.
Well done.
Okay, talk to you next week.
Till next time.
All right.